Hare Krishna. Summary of Canto 4, Chapter 22. Prithu Maharaja meets the four Kumaras. When the citizens were praising Prithu Maharaj, the four Kumaras who were as bright as the sun arrived there. Seeing their effulgence, Prithu and others could recognize who they were as they descended from the sky. Thus the king and the citizens immediately got up to receive them with the great eagerness, just like how a conditioned soul is attracted to his sense objects. Prithu, with his broad shoulders, which were lowered in humility, offered them seats, worshipped them according to the scriptures, washed their feet, and sprinkled that water over his head. Thus he showed how to receive saintly people. Prithu Maharaj then began speaking with the four Kumaras who were seated on a golden throne. He said, "What kind of pious activities have I performed to have your rare darshan, which is so rare even for mystic yogis? One can achieve anything which is rare to obtain in this world and next, and one receives the favor of Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu. Although you travel in all planetary systems, people cannot see or know you, just as all people, including Brahma and other creators, cannot understand the Super Soul. Fortunate householders are those who, even if poor, give worthy reception to saintly people like yourself with water, a sitting place, and so on. Unfortunate householders are those who, even if rich, do not allow the Vaishnavas to enter their homes, and in which houses there is no water or water for washing the feet of such Vaishnavas. Their houses are just like trees in which all venomous serpents live." Prithu Maharaj extended a warm welcome to the Kumaras. He said, "Welcome, you are the best of the Brahmanas, Vijashreshta, and you strictly observe brahmachari vows, and although you are experienced in the path of liberation, you desire to keep yourselves just like small children. Can there be any good fortune for people like us, whose only aim is sense gratification, and who have fallen into the samsara by our own activities?" Prithu Maharaj was not asking about the welfare of his guests, the Kumaras, but he directly started inquiring about his own welfare, because there is no need to ask for the welfare of great saintly people. Prithu Maharaj told them, "You are Atmaramas and you make no mental concoctions about what is auspicious or what is inauspicious. Therefore, I ask you directly about what is the means for us. Will there be any benefit for us while we are suffering in this material world?" The Lord, who reveals himself to the world and who is always anxious to elevate the living entities, travels around the world in the form of self-realized souls like yourself to show mercy to his devotees. At that time, Sanat Kumara began to answer Prithu's questions in great detail. Prithu Maharaj's speech was very meaningful. It was appropriate, concise, sweet. Therefore, Sanat Kumar was very satisfied. He smiled and he began to speak. He said, "I've been very nicely questioned by you. You're always thinking of the welfare of others, although you know everything. You inquire for others because that is the behavior of a sadhu. Just as you desire our association, similarly we desire yours." Discussions with question and answers become conclusive in a congregation of devotees. Such meetings spread happiness for both the speaker and the audience. Now, Prithu Maharaj had asked what is the benefit for himself, and now the Kumaras answered saying that you already have what is most beneficial. You already have an inclination for glorifying the qualities of the Lord's lotus feet. Such fixed attachment is very rare and it cleanses lusty desires from the heart, which is so difficult to remove, like a mineral dye that is there on a cloth. So now the Kumaras, they answer Prithu's question. They say the only cause of benefit for human society has been conclusively established in the scriptures as detachment from the bodily concept and attachment to the Lord. Jnana Mishra Bhakti with predominance of Bhakti culminating in Shantarati is what the Kumaras explain. Attachment to the Lord and detachment from the body can be developed by having faith, being inquisitive about the process of bhakti, applying bhakti yoga in life, worshipping the Lord or the topmost devotees, regularly hearing and chanting the Lord's glories, not associating with persons simply interested in sense gratification and money, not associating with associates of materialists or accepting their goals, being disgusted with the taste of sense enjoyment, being satisfied in the self, molding one's life so that one cannot live in peace without drinking the nectar of the Lord's qualities, being non-violent, following in the footsteps of great acharyas, remembering and tasting the sweetness of the excellent pastimes of the Lord, practicing yama, niyama, and so on without material desires, not criticizing others and their methods of religion, simple and plain living, tolerating dualities, constant hearing of the Lord's qualities, which are actually like ornaments to the ears, and increasing one's bhakti, which develops detachment from matter and attachment to the Lord. The result of such attachment to the Lord is that by the grace of Guru one awakens jnana and vairagya and destroys the subtle body, just like how fire arising from the wood burns itself. The result of destruction of the subtle body is that one no longer sees external sense objects for one's own pleasure, internal disturbances like lamentation and so on, and obstacles in seeing the Paramatma which had existed previously. This is similar to the waking state in which one no longer sees the objects in a dream. The effects of the presence and absence of a subtle body is that in the presence of a subtle body, one is subject to various designations and sees oneself as an enjoyer due to desires, things of this world as objects of sense enjoyment and the results of happiness and distress. However, in the absence of the subtle body, one sees the Paramatma and one tries to fulfill the Lord's desires. In the presence of a subtle body, one sees differences in the bodies of oneself and others, just as one sees the reflection of a body appearing differently in water, oil, or a mirror. In the absence of a subtle body, one doesn't see such differences. Attachment to sense gratification is the cause of samsara. Sense gratification causes the destruction of the self. Thinking of sense gratification, one's mind becomes agitated and discriminating power of intelligence is lost. Then memory is lost and knowledge is destroyed. Constant thinking of money and its use for sense gratification results in destruction of all goals, loss of jnana and vijnana, and finally entrance into immovable forms of life. So one must be detached from things that obstruct the purusharthas. Those who desire to cross the ocean of nescience should never have attachment for things which completely obstruct dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. Moksha is the most important of the four purusharthas and must be taken very seriously. The other three are all subject to destruction by death. How are the other three goals subject to destruction? Because the Lord destroys all temporary goals. There is nothing auspicious for those whose goals will be destroyed by the end of time. Such temporary goals, higher or lower, exist only in relation to the material modes. Bhakti Mishra Jnana with the predominance of Jnana and goal of Sayujya Mukti is actually to understand the super soul who is living within the hearts of all moving and non-moving beings covered by bodies, senses, life airs, intelligence and false ego. Such a person should meditate, so's me, I am he. The impersonal concept of the mantra Tat Tvam Asi and Soham is that the Supreme Lord and the Jiva are one. But from the devotee's perspective, these mantras assert that both the Supreme Lord and the Jiva are of the same quality. One must surrender to the super soul who is with the cause and effect and is ever liberated, completely pure and the highest truth. One who has transcended Maya by deliberate consideration, which clears the misconception of a snake for a rope, can actually understand him. Understanding Prithu's distaste for the word Sosmi, Sanat Kumara now began to speak about pure bhakti. So far, he spoke about the path of bhakti mixed with jnana, and now finally, he will explain pure bhakti, which is actually the best path. So then he said to Prithu Maharaj, he said, "Give up, give up this karmashayam by serving Lord Vasudeva." By engaging in the service of the toes of the lotus feet of the Lord, the devotees very easily uproot the hard knotted desires of fruitive activities. But non devotees like jnanis and yogis, even if they strongly try, cannot stop the waves of sense gratification. Therefore, just worship Lord Vasudeva. One can give up inferior desires when engaged in superior desires. When the tide from the ocean overfloods the rivers, the waves of the ocean take prominence over those of a river. Similarly, a devotee plans so many things for the Lord's service that his stagnant material desires become overflooded by the desire to serve the Lord. The ocean of nescience is very difficult for non-devotees to cross because it is intensified with many dangerous sharks. Therefore, by making the Lord's worshipable lotus feet as a boat, one should cross this difficult ocean of samsara. After being thus enlightened by Sanat Kumar, who was well versed in spiritual knowledge, the king praised the Kumaras. He said, "You confirmed Lord Vishnu's blessing. Formerly he showed me his causeless mercy by indicating that you would come to my house. You have carried out the Lord's order because you are as compassionate as he is. Since all that I possess is sadhu uttishtam, how can I give anything as Guru Dakshina?" Prithu gave all his wealth and charity at the end of the hot sacrifice. What that remained with him he considered the remnants of the devotees, and even before that he considered his kingdom to have been given to him by the saintly persons headed by Brigu, who churned his body from King Vena. So he only possessed the remnants of sadhus. He said, therefore, I, I offered everything, my life, my wife, children, home, furniture, kingdom, strength, land and treasury to all the saintly persons. Only those who knows the principles of Vedic knowledge deserves to be the commander-in-chief, leader of the state, punisher and ruler of all planets. It's like this, he offered actually everything to the Kumaras. He said it is the Brahmanas who enjoy, bear, and give what is their own property. By their mercy, the Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras eat their food. The path of self realization is explained by the knowers of the Vedas for our enlightenment with complete conviction and Vedic evidence. Such merciful personalities can be satisfied only by their own activities of uplifting the fallen souls. Who can repay them? One can only offer water with folded hands. One who tries to repay them is just a joker. After being worshipped like this by Prithu Maharaj, the Kumaras were very pleased. They praised the character of the king and they went to Satyaloka. Maharaj Prithu, being completely fixed in pure bhakti, was the chief amongst great personalities. He considered himself most satisfied by the teachings about Atma. Since he was a pure devotee, he could be fully satisfied only by pure bhakti. Therefore, he performed his duties according to time, place, strength, and financial position, all with one aim, that was to satisfy the supreme absolute truth. Pure devotees like Prithu Maharaj are beyond the execution of karmas. Yet, as householders, they sometimes engage in karmas to teach people in general to avoid lapses in following the rules of Varnashram, to avoid criticism of the path of bhakti, and to protect the confidentiality of pure bhakti. They remain detached and uncontaminated by such karmas. Prithu always thought of himself as the servant of the Lord, who is the proprietor of everything. He dedicated the fruits of all his activities unto the Lord. Although Prithu was a householder possessing kingdom and wealth, he never used his opulence in sense gratification and he remained unaffected just like the sun. He performed all fruitive activities without detachment, and by his own desire he produced five sons Vijitashva, Dhumrakesha, Haryaksha, Dravina, and Bruka with his wife Archi. He embodied all the good qualities of the Devatas. Being Krishna conscious, Prithu Maharaj wanted to protect the Lord's creation according to time by pleasing the citizens with his attractive qualities, words, and mind. The various qualities of Prithu Maharaj are compared very beautifully. Uh, Prithu's pleasing and celebrated qualities are compared to the moon, his powerful and exacting qualities like the sun, the unconquerable qualities that he had that nobody could disobey his orders were like the fire. He was insuperable like Indra, he was tolerant like earth, he was fulfilling various desires like heaven. He was satisfying everyone like rainfall, unfathomable. No one could fathom his purposes like the sea. He had fixity in his purpose like Meru, intelligence in delivering exact punishment like Yamaraj, opulences like the Himalayas, riches like Kuvera. No one could reveal his secrets like Varuna, bodily and sensual strength like wind, intolerant like Rudra, beautiful like Cupid, fearless like a lion, affectionate like Manu, powerful like Brahma, knowledgeable of the Brahman like Brihaspati, control of his senses like the Supreme Lord, and devotion to cows, elders, brahmanas, and devotees, and in helping others with bashfulness, humility, and cheerfulness, just like himself. Prithu Maharaj's reputation was loudly declared throughout the whole universe, and all the ladies and saintly persons heard his glories, which were as sweet as the glories of Lord Ramachandra. Thus ends the summary of Canto 4, Chapter 22. Prithu Maharaja meets the four Kumaras. Hare Krishna.